Hey guys, welcome back to the Turbo V6 YouTube channel. My name's Brandon, and today we're going to be doing more work on the Firebird. So in this episode, what I'd like to try and get done is install these AeroCatch Xtreme hood latches. If you haven't watched my prior videos, I cut the front end off of this Firebird and used a Rock Solid Motorsports tube front kit. And I still have a couple minor things to add for the front end, but generally it's pretty much all there. The big thing that I want to do is mount the hood catches to one of the bars in the kit. So that's why I waited on welding that bar in, because I want to make sure that these will be able to mount to it to have a nice secure location for the hood. So the first thing we need to do is draw a spot welds on this piece of the hood. I bought this rotary spot weld cutter from Harbor Freight. We'll see how it does. I've never used one of these before, but it should work better than a regular drill bit like I used on the shock tower. Basically wound up having to just drill the spot weld out entirely, which is not a huge deal, but for the few dollars, I figured it might look a little bit better if I try and, do it the right way and get this thing cut out so we can have more room for the hood pins. So let's pull the rest of this front end off so that we can not mess up the paint on the body panels and start cutting away at the welds. All right, so we got the piece of sheet metal off. That wasn't too bad. I did have an issue with the Harbor Freight spot weld tool, but I worked around it. It wasn't too big of a deal. The issue that I had with the Harbor Freight spot weld deal is this little pin is spring loaded, but it looks like it just rounded it off. It was very pointy. So I used this spring loaded center punch, and it worked initially for the first one, but then it just rounded the end of it off. I guess maybe it's not hardened like it should be, but it wound up just starting to walk out of the hole because the divot wasn't very large from this. And I fixed it really quickly with, I just used a small drill bit, like a 3/32 drill bit. Went in just basically probably the same diameter, and just drilled a really shallow hole in the middle where the center punch punched, and it just allowed that even the rounded off portion not to walk all over the place. So yeah, you can see I got, a few of these holes are all scratched up, which, it doesn't really matter because I wanted to pull this off, but it just slowed me down. So I just used the drill to drill the rest of them a little bit so it wouldn't walk out. And then they came out just fine. Nicely, there's some fairly large openings in the bottom of the hood, so I will not have to cut my own holes to let the kind of backing plates for the hood latches in. So I could just slide them in through those holes. They'll look like they're big enough. And now I just need to kind of decide where I want to put the hood pins. So now that we got that done, I can try and decide where I want to put the hood pins. I might do kind of a quick tape job on the paint and kind of mark out exactly where I want to put the hood pins. And then that will kind of determine where I put this crossbar for the actual pin portion. It looks like I might have to angle them just because of the way the shape of the hood is. I don't want any massive misalignment issues because these do have only so much kind of misalignment allowed. Otherwise, I'd have to start shaving out a portion of this latch, which I don't want to make it any weaker. They are just plastic, but I've had good luck with them. So yeah, so we'll get this thing maybe taped up and mark it out for where I want the hood pins. I have the position for the hood catches mocked up. With that recess, I basically have to go in a certain amount to be able to get that plate that holds it from the bottom of the hood underneath. It looks like it's going to look pretty good. I tried to follow the body line, so I basically just spaced off the hood catch the same, whatever distance from the front and the side. And I think it's going to look pretty good. Kind of hard to tell with the tape on there, but... So now the next step is to kind of mark the position where the hood pin is actually going to go through the hood, come up through the hood, and then kind of work backwards to find out where I want to place that crossbar so that I have, a really rigid setup. I'm going to have to make a bracket to be able to mount these to that crossbar. But I want to be able to make sure that it's, it's going to be sturdy, it's going to be rigid, so that, the wind at, who knows how fast I'm going to wind up going in this, but the hood is going to stay down all the time. And yeah, the only potential concern is the way that the seating position is in this thing. I'm not going to be able to probably see these hood latches if they're not latched. So I'm going to have to be really, really on top of making sure that they're latched before I go down the track because the seating position is so low in this and the hood is curved so much that I really can't see anything on the front end. I might actually wind up painting the bottom side of these hood catches like orange or something really bright so that if anyone notices that they're not latched, that they'll stop me. So we'll go ahead and get this thing marked up and drill a hole and be able to start mocking this thing up. I finished up grinding out the spot for the hood latches, and it turned out pretty good. So I'm happy with that. It was a little bit finicky. The tool wound up running away from me on both sides, but luckily the spots that I messed up are going to be covered up by this flange. Kind of got lucky on that one, and on this one, it's right under this hole. Be careful with what tool you use to kind of finish these holes out. You know, I just got a little bit too aggressive with that right angle tool, and it just caught and pulled the tool right out of my hand. So just take it slow and steady, and maybe next time I'll use a different tool. But I got it done, no major issues, and now the next portion is to try and figure out where I'm going to mount the bottom of the pin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these little cushions that it comes with. So I'm going to use this, push it up onto this pin, and that'll kind of hold it in place. And then I'll be able to locate this crossbar for the tube front end. And then I'm going to have to tack that into place and come up with some kind of mounting bracket to mount between the tube and the actual hood pin itself. I started messing around with some cardboard, thinking about making a plate that will basically go down and tie into this tube, bend up, over, and bend back down. But I didn't really like how that would look, and it would just be a lot of work fabricating it, and it would take up a lot of space. Would be hard to get it to match side to side. So I also discovered that I have a little bit of this round 3/4 inch tube left from mounting the headlights. They basically sent it a little bit long, and I wound up cutting this, 3 or 4 inch section off to mount these headlight tubes. So that's where I had this extra left over from, and I have some nuts, some flange nuts. The flange nuts fit perfectly in that tube. So I think what I'm going to wind up doing is just welding that flange nut inside the end of the tube to basically cap it off, and then weld the tube down. That will be my hood pin support that'll tie into this main bumper hoop. And then that'll be nice because then I'll just be able to take it out, take the hood pin in and out half of a turn at a time to be able to adjust the height of the hood. So we'll go ahead and get these tubes cleaned up, get the nuts cleaned up, and weld the nuts in the end of the tubes. It's been a few days since I last recorded anything. I think I left off on trying to figure out how I was going to do the hood pins, and I've gotten most of it figured out. I have everything mocked up at this point. I also welded on the front bumper support, and I fully welded that front hoop now that I figured out exactly where I need everything to sit. So here you can see there's basically some 1/4 inch round bar that comes up and supports this bumper support from this front hoop, and I also have this 7/8 DOM tubing coming up off of it for the hood pins. I was originally going to use what I think I wound up time-lapsing me making these, but they weren't quite long enough, and I really didn't think the diameter was probably big enough, even though it was probably fine. I bought some 7/8 that basically this 3/4 slips right inside, and now I have it tacked up. Probably will have to do a little bit more clearancing, both of maybe like right around where it passes through the bottom support of the hood, and also on the inside of this as well. Because these are angled, the hood, you know, obviously isn't flat. So there's probably no way of avoiding this because of the way it was, and I really wanted to kind of follow the body lines of the hood. I thought that that looked the best, and I think this is probably the most secure location on the hood because it's, you know, it's most towards like where all the air catches it. So that's pretty much where I'm at. So we'll jump back into it tomorrow and see what we can get done. All right, well, probably should have started recording right whenever I started working, but I got a couple things done. I have these brackets that I welded onto the front tubes to try and support the bottom of the bumper. I also started messing around with adding a couple more tacks to these hood pin supports. I think I'm gonna go ahead and fully weld these out, and then worst case scenario, if I need to tweak anything, I can move this tube inside a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and tack that into place and fully weld those out. Once we get that done, the hood pins will be done. I still need to bolt in the bottom plates so that the actual AeroCatch hood pins are solid in place, but I want to use some touch-up paint on the inside on the bare sheet metal, so we'll go ahead and do that, and then I can bolt these into place for good, and then we'll be able to take the tape off and it'll be done. I'm pretty sure later today my radiator is going to be coming in, so that'll be the next big thing, is to mount the radiator, get that thing supported. I got a couple parts in for it. I actually picked up these really inexpensive radiator bushings. I'm hoping they're going to be the right size. They're only like $3 for 2 of them off Amazon. So we'll be going ahead and making some brackets and whatnot to hold these into place. Once the radiators come in, we'll be able to figure out exactly where we want to put it, and also how we're going to mount it. Let's get these hood pins finished up, and then we can jump onto the radiator. All right, so I got those tubes fully welded, and you can see I kind of cheated. It's a pretty easy way to be able to weld something like this. I'd just be able to put a bolt in there and then rest my hand on here and just kind of try and spin around the tube. All done there, and now we can make sure that the hood pins are good in clearance from underneath. I do still need to knock off the remaining bit of metal on the bottom of the hood from the spot welds on that piece that we took off earlier, and I'm probably going to wind up supporting the headlight bracket to here. I need to go and buy some more round stock, so that I can, I don't know, probably go from, somewhere around here to here or something like that, so that it's not in the way of the headlight bracket for the motor and all that, but still supports it from, just cantilevering, because you can see it wiggles a little bit. So yeah, I think I'm gonna probably get more material, and then I'll be able to support that. I thought about supporting the hood pins, back to this bar, or trying to tie the hood pin back to the headlight, but we'll see how stiff everything is once I, at least tie this bar to the headlight. I think it'll probably tie everything together pretty good. And yeah, that's probably about it for the hood pins. Yeah, so once we get this thing painted up, that's when I'll fully install everything. But for now, I might just, mock it back up so everything's in a semi-finished position, and we'll make sure everything fits. I think I'm also going to wind up tying in the bumper cover in another place, but I'll probably do that when I get around to mounting the radiators. So I think that's probably what's next. So if you want to see what kind of radiator I bought, or how I'm going to mount it, stay tuned, and thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you later.